Welcome to Capital City News, your connection to Salt Lake City government. I'm your host, Poonam Kumar. The city is looking to make its housing stock better fit the needs of the city. And to talk to us about the ongoing survey of housing in Salt Lake City, we have Tammy Hunsaker from Housing and Neighborhood Development. And our History Minute this week tells us the story of Salt Lake City's connection to one of the biggest movie stars in the history of the world, Charlie Chaplin. Let's start things off by looking at what's been going on in the city. The public joined Mayor Becker for Beers at Oh Shucks Bar for Beers with Becker. It was a chance to relax, have a beer with the mayor, and hear about the exciting things going on in downtown and all around the city. Salt Lake City's Economic Development Division and Mayor Becker hosted a kickoff event for the relaunch of the Economic Development Fund. It's one of the city's most important tools in strengthening the local small business community and has made over 135 loans to Salt Lake City businesses, totaling over $15 million with an average loan of $73,000. Strengthening development efforts is a key component to Mayor Becker's livability agenda, and this renewed Economic Development Loan Fund will help small businesses flourish in Salt Lake City. For more information, visit slcgov.com/EDLF. Dine O'Round is happening again this month from September 12th through the 28th. The Downtown Alliance has joined with more than 50 restaurants in downtown Salt Lake City to provide $5 and $10 lunches and $15 and $30 three-course dinners to showcase their best food. So if you're looking for a new lunch spot or a favorite place to take a date, this is your chance to try something new. For more information on participating restaurants, visit dinearound.com. Applications are now open for the City Signature Events Fund from now until October 21st. Residents can apply for grants through the city for their events. Established by Mayor Becker and the Salt Lake City Council, the Signature Events Fund is intended to financially support public events, both large and small, that provide significant economic and cultural contributions to Salt Lake City. Salt Lake City is in the midst of an ongoing survey to prioritize housing and neighborhood development needs. To talk with us about the importance of the survey and why you should participate, we have Tammy Hunsaker from the Salt Lake City's Housing and Neighborhood Development Division here with us. Tammy, thanks so much for talking with us today.
Thank you.
So tell me a little bit about the changing demographics here in Salt Lake City.
Salt Lake City is going through tremendous changes. We're seeing population growth throughout the city. We're seeing diversity growing as well, especially on the west side. We're also seeing an increase in senior population as the baby boomers age. And we're seeing a lot of millennials drawn to the city for jobs and school, and they're staying here and looking for housing. So all of these demographic changes impact our housing needs within the city.
So with all these changes, how are we addressing those with our housing needs?
In housing and neighborhood development, we're working on two plans: a citywide housing plan that will outline housing needs and priorities over the next 5 years, and it will provide a framework for addressing those needs through policy changes, through housing initiatives and programs. And then we're also developing a consolidated plan which will outline how our federal funding is spent over the next 5 years, including community development block grant funding. So this is funding that we get from the federal government every year, and it can go to activities in communities such as housing, neighborhood improvement, street improvement, park improvements. So we're outlining all of these priorities to try to integrate a comprehensive housing and neighborhood development plan.
The city is encouraging residents to participate by taking an online survey. Can you tell me a little bit about that?
The Housing and Neighborhood Development Survey is really reaching out to the citywide population for feedback on what their housing priorities are, what their housing needs are, if they're planning on moving in the next 3 to 5 years, what's triggering that move, what type of neighborhood improvements they're looking for, if their priorities are for parks or trails or transit access. We want to know all this information so we support what the community wants in our activities.
What's the time frame for this process?
The survey is available through the end of October, and then we'll take that data and start forming our plans, and we will reach back out to the community through various sources to get more input on what our perceived priorities are.
And lastly, we're encouraging residents to go online to take the survey.
Yes,
good. Okay.
Definitely.
Thank you so much. And now it's time for our History Minute.
In the early days of cinema, Charlie Chaplin was the world's biggest movie star. His comedy films featuring himself as the Tramp were some of the most beloved films anywhere. But in 1918, he'd suffered a series of personal tragedies. He'd been pushed into a marriage with a 17-year-old bride, lost a child, and had hit a creative slump. But he opted to return with his first feature-length film. The Kid was a long, slow shoot, and Chaplin went through 53 minutes of film for every 1 minute that ended up on screen. By the time production was winding down, his estranged young wife filed for divorce. Since the film could have been declared a marriage asset, Chaplin fled with his editor, cinematographer, and 500 rolls of film packed in coffee cans and made his way to Salt Lake City. In his room at the Hotel Utah, now the Joseph Smith Memorial Building, a well-disguised Chaplin was editing the film. This was an incredibly risky proposition since the nitrate film stock at the time was highly flammable and not allowed in public buildings. Any spark would have brought the entire hotel down in flames. Working tirelessly, Chaplin was close to finishing his first feature-length film. He opted to make the first sneak preview close to him and screened it for the first time to an audience in Salt Lake City who loved it. Eventually, he finished the film, left for New York City, settled his divorce, and The Kid was released in 1921, and it's now considered one of the most important films in the history of cinema, and it was cut and screened for the very first time right here in Salt Lake City.
That's it for this week's Capital City News, your connection to Salt Lake City government. Be sure to tune in next time to stay up to date on what's happening in the city. For SLC TV, I'm Poonam Kumar.